Hi. Um, we're gonna try something a little different today. Since you all can't come to us, we're gonna come to you with some independent living lessons. So I'm coming to you from my house. Um, but we thought that a good topic to start out with would be finances. Everybody's getting or most people are getting stimulus checks or have gotten them if you haven't, um, if you've previously filed, or if you haven't, I hope you signed up by yesterday um, with Social Security if you've never filed before because yesterday was the deadline. Um, or some people may be getting tax refunds. And what's everybody's first instinct when they get a large sum of money is to maybe go out and purchase something that they would normally get to do or do something fun with it. I know that's my first instinct. So um, I'm going to talk a little bit about finances with you, and hopefully you'll learn some stuff out of this and it will help people. I'm going to go kind of from beginners. So some of you may know this stuff, some of you may not. So you may just want to fast forward or pick and choose what you want to see, and we'll go from there. Let me screen. It is my first go at this, so please bear with me on one still. Way. So I can see the Here we go. Okay. And by the way, I want to give props to the curriculum we're using. Uh, Healthy Community Living has a license for all kinds of curriculum, and the Center for Accessible Living is proud to use it. So that is where the information comes from. I'm not a financial expert. You know, I had to learn these skills just like everybody else. And some days I'm still learning them. So you're never too late to start. So let's talk about spending money for a minute. Spending money obviously includes goods and services that you want to buy. You can spend money by using a debit card, a credit card, or paying cash at a store. Sometimes when you spend money, you may charge it and then pay later by getting a bill or a statement. So we're going to talk first a little bit about wants and needs. Everybody thinks they know the difference between a want and need, but I've taught this class before and I've taught it to high schoolers, and some of them argue over certain things like um, the internet, for example. Is it a want or a need? So, needs are goods and services that you need to live. Until the need is met, safety may be involved. Need examples include housing or a place to live, food and water to maintain our health, enough clothing to feel comfortable and appropriately dressed, um, healthcare costs and copays, insurance, medications, self-care such as shampoo, toothbrushes, soap, that kind of thing. So let me go back to my internet, for example, right now. Some things that are considered needs for some people are not considered needs for others. Um, for example, I work at home right now. I use the internet to record this video, and that's how I keep my job and my livelihood. So internet would probably be a need for me. It may not be a need for everybody. There's different places for free Wi-Fi and stuff out there right now. I know here in Murray, Kentucky, which is where I'm at, the Court Square is offering free Wi-Fi. Do I want to log in with your confidential information on that Wi-Fi system? Probably not. But if somebody was just needing to check their email or download their lessons for the day, if you're teaching children right now, that may be appropriate. So one person's needs may not look the same as another person's needs, and you need to weigh those out. Other needs include transportation, electricity, your cell phone. Now, that's another one that's argued when I teach this live. Some people say cell phones are a need, and right here it says it's a need. Yes, your phone is a need. Now, when it comes to the latest, greatest, I don't know the example of an Android because I use my phone. So when it comes to the newest iPhone, that's not necessarily a need. That's maybe more of a want. Or for example, assistive technology. If something like, say, the Amazon Echo, you use to turn on and off the lights in your house and it makes you more independent, it might be a need. Now, is it at the top of your needs chain? Not necessarily, but if you're just using the Amazon Echo to listen to music and stuff and you just think it's cool, it might be more of a want. And I'm sorry if you hear my dogs running around in the background. Unplanned needs, we have to anticipate those. So those include medical expenses, late fees on your rent or any other bill, home or car repairs, emergency pet costs. Okay, we're going to talk about pets in a minute. Technology or other adaptive equipment and repairs. Oops. Sorry. Okay. Wants. Entertainment, video, movies when we can go back, eating outside your home, habits that you may have, smoking or drinking alcohol, getting a pet. Now, a pet can be considered a want unless, it's like a service animal and you use it to survive. But once you get that pet, taking care of that pet is your responsibility. That's why emergency vet visits and things like that were listed as a need. Owning a house, going on trips. Giving is also wants. Okay, so if you look here, you may want to factor in those donations into your budget. That may be important to you, church tithing or giving to your local nonprofit. And always you want to get receipts when you do that. So that's a want for you, but it's something that is important to you for whatever reason. So you have to factor in those wants too, as long as your needs are met. And also, if it's something large, you want to get a receipt because that may be able to go back on your taxes. I'm going to skip this for now because I'm going to do the abbreviated version. But we're going to watch this.
I look at needs as priorities are going to be our house payment, car payment or insurance, food, and clothing. And the vehicles, meaning the transportation. So those are all priorities in order for kids to get to school, us to get to work, to get to groceries, any of that. We need food, shelter, and clothing and transportation. Do we need to buy new clothing all the time? No. So need on that would be someone's shoes are falling apart. That's a need compared to, oh, those are cool shoes. I would like those. Okay, are they in the budget right now? No.
So you see, she kind of prioritized things, and that's what you have to figure out. Your needs versus wants. And I would encourage you to sit down and make a list, whether it's on the computer, on a piece of paper, whatever you do. And that will help you realize exactly what you're looking for to make a budget, first of all. But it would also help you prioritize things. And that's what this is talking about here. I got a little ahead of myself. So, what are some needs you have? What are some wants you have? And what's at the top of the list? And number those in order. So, your needs in order, get those first, then your wants in order. You know, the subscription to Netflix, although it may be widely used right now, and it may be an important one for you because you don't get to go out, maybe over something else. You never know. So give us some comments about needs and wants. We would really appreciate it. Okay. And I'm not going to go through all these today. I'll do another video and continue. But I am going to go through a couple more for you. Hidden cost. Sometimes there's costs involved that we don't realize what we're doing, or we don't realize there's there. It's kind of what we call spending leaks. If you imagine a jar and your budget is this jar, and the jar has a little hole in it, but you don't know exactly where it's coming from, and all your finances are dribbling out of that little hole slowly. Those can be hidden costs or spending leaks. Other hidden costs could be something like you want a car, but you don't realize exactly what goes in a car. So you have to kind of plan for stuff like that and talk to people that you know so that they can help you figure out some of the hidden costs. When you make a purchase, you consider the price, but not necessarily the expenses to keep that purchase in working order. For example, a pet, there may be the adoption fee, but there's also pet food, the veterinary expenses that we talked about earlier, maybe a pet deposit for your apartment, different things like that. Also, going back to the car, there's the price of the car, but then there's also the maintenance in the car, there's the insurance in the car, there's the gas in the car, there's car repairs. So is it feasible to get a car right now using public transportation? Those are things you have to weigh out and considering the hidden costs to do it. Discussions of hidden expenses. Okay, so think about it for a minute. And I really wish this was live and I could get, answers from you guys, but leave me some in the comments. What's something that you bought that you didn't realize had extra cost involved? I know when you buy that video gaming system that my husband loves so much, there's extra cost that we didn't think about when we purchased that. The subscriptions, the the newest and latest games that you always have to buy. I'm not a gamer, so I don't think about stuff like that. I don't know why I went there, but that one just popped into my head. So there's spending leaks or hidden costs in everything. Would you have gotten it if you'd realized the hidden costs? And how can you plan for those hidden costs in the future? So leave me some comments. Getting a pet, we've talked a little bit about that, but another thing we didn't talk about is the food. Obviously, a collar and a leash. We talked about the deposit, the veterinary bills, and the adoption fees. Oh, flea treatments, medications, that's another one. I have 3 pets at home, and it can get fairly costly, Okay, going back to that vehicle, we went over some of these. Tires are another one. For those of us with disabilities, myself included, another hidden cost that fortunately, other people don't have to consider is hand controls or other accommodations of that nature, which you can get assistance with, but those can be fairly expensive. And also, even though you get assistance with those things, a lot of people don't realize that you have to get higher insurance because the equipment itself makes the vehicle more expensive, and you want it to cover everything if you're in an accident, not just the actual base car itself. So that you have to factor in high expenses like that. What about extra hidden costs for living? There's the security deposit, there's the first and last month's rent. There is things like water and electricity. There's renter insurance or home insurance. There's the cost involved with cleaning carpets and stuff when you move out, and filling in those holes and stuff when you plan to move. There's microwaves and other appliances that may not be included. Washer and dryer is another one that's not always included. Shower curtains, trash cans, all of that stuff. So there's a lot to think about when doing a big purchase or even small purchases. You have to sit there and plan it out and know where you're going to get all these things. Okay, bills. We all know what a bill is, I hope. If you don't, you're a very, very, very lucky human being. But bills are certain things that you owe that have not been paid for. They could be one-time expenses. You could set up payment plans and pay over a certain period of months. They could also be something that's ongoing that comes every month, like the electric bill, for example. They have a due date usually when the money has to be paid, and paying them late can get you into a habit of fees and overdrafts, and it could even get things turned off or taken away. So we have to prioritize our bills. Reading a bill. Okay. a lot of people, especially people that haven't seen very many of these, don't necessarily know how to read a bill. So it usually has where it's coming from. It usually has a list of services you're being charged for, the sum that you owe, or in the case of a medical bill, it maybe have what's listed, what's paid for by the insurance, like what was actually charged, paid for by the insurance, and then what you owe. And then it also has to have a due date that it should be paid by. So let's look at a sample bill for a minute. This is from the Mountain Water Company. You can see that at the top. And who it was sent to. So this is David's bill. Let's see if I can write on this so it's easier for you to see. Okay. So here we go. This is what I wanted. So the Mountain Valley Water Company, and this is David's bill. There's no special messages, but sometimes there may be, especially if it's a final notice or it's past due or something like that. And I don't know what I did just to zoom in, but we're gonna see if we can't go out. Oh, okay. Go back a minute. What did I do? Okay. Technical difficulties, it happens. There we go. Woo! Okay. Sorry about that. Go back to our sample bill here. Like I said, this is my first time doing this, so bear with me. On this particular bill, it will have these on electric bills and stuff too. It shows your usage. So if it's particularly high for a month, it shows, you know, what you've used when. So that's a good way to track and save some money there. And then it's got a list of all your charges. Your basic charge, and there's always fees attached with utility bills, whether it be school tax or other fees. It's all listed there. So the current charges are $27.20. And it also shows where your last payment was made. And the account number is also a good thing to point out. If you're paying this by check, you probably want to write your account number and your customer number there as well. So let's go back. Some tips for you: check to make sure the bill is yours. That seems obvious, but you know, people make mistakes and you may get your neighbor's mail or whatever. So make sure it's for you. Make sure there was no errors. Make sure it's for something that you actually bought. You know, people steal other people's information. There's identity theft and all kinds of stuff. So make sure You're being asked to pay for something that a service or a product that you actually bought or used. If you do receive something that's not yours, don't pay it, but contact the company. Setting up reminders for bills. This is a good one. This is one that I have to use because I have no memory. And there's all kinds of different ways to use it. There's the very, very simple where you just have a calendar maybe hung up on your wall or whatever, and you write when the bills are due. And a tip for me is I also write when my money's coming in, whether that's from your job, whether that is from Social Security, or anything else that you may be receiving. So you know when money's coming in and you know when money has to go out. But people can also set up auto pay for the bank account for the money to come out, and they don't necessarily have to worry about writing that check. There's pluses and minuses to that. If you, for whatever reason, don't have money in at that point, it may be causing overdrafts and fees. The pluses are obviously that you don't have to necessarily remember. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. You have to work out what's right with you. And if you want to see some more about how to do that, leave us a comment or something, and when we'll go into more detail about setting stuff like that up or using a calendar or whatever you need. Another tip is to save receipts. Things go wrong, or they send you a bill, you pay it, and then you get another bill. So save proof that you've paid that bill. Don't just toss it. It doesn't happen often, but it happens more often than you think. So you always want a paper trail. Being late. Being late is something that happens. It happens to most people at one time in their life or another. You want to be honest to the company. Don't necessarily, try to fool them or whatever and say, "Oh, I paid that," when you know well you didn't. But pay them as soon as possible. See if there's some sort of payment plan you could do. You can also get assistance. Not all the time, but when you need it, when an emergency comes up, there's different organizations and stuff that can help. Now, most of them can only help ever so often, so you have to be careful when using stuff like that. Let's go into receipts. Computer will cooperate. Here we go. So what is a receipt? A receipt is that slip of paper that you throw away when you buy something, right? And I'm guilty of it too. But receipts are actually really important, and there's something that you shouldn't just throw away in the trash. It shows, you need them for returns. You may need them for proof that you paid the bill, like we talked about. They show what you've bought, what you've paid, and they're really important. There's a reason why we got them. So you always need to keep your receipt and check that there's not an error. You never know, there could be. Receipts are also important, for the money back sites, and we can talk about those in the future, where you scan your receipt and then you can get so much money back on your purchase. Who knew? If you'd like to see something like that, leave a comment. So let's look at a sample. So you have the date of the purchase, you have what they bought, And looks like 2 dinner combos and a drink. And what they owe. Let's do that. So you may need to keep your receipt for a warranty or something. So if it's durable medical equipment or the new computer you just bought, you have to keep proof of that receipt. Don't just throw it in the trash. It may expire your warranty. Different receipts for those donations and things that we talked about. You need those for your taxes to get proof that you've made that donation. To return something or exchange it. So receipts are really important. So moral of the story is keep your receipts. And I will tell you, the person that helps me do my taxes tells me to keep the receipts for the year until my taxes are filed. Because you could be audited. And if you're audited, you need to show those receipts. That's when the government comes in and they make sure you're not lying on your taxes or whatever. Debt. Nobody's friend, but we all accrue it at some point. Okay, so debt is obviously money that you owe. Nobody likes debt. There are different kinds of debt. There is debt from loans, where it's a vehicle or maybe a house, student loan, small business loan, and more. It can also be your home loans or your mortgage, your medical bills, credit cards, fees, fines that you may owe, or personal loans. Before getting a loan or a line of credit, these are some things that you should think about. You need to research different types of loans. Also research grants. We talked about those vehicle modifications earlier, and I said there's assistance that you can get for those. There is the Heart Supported Living Grant. Once a year is a grant in the state of Kentucky that you can do that. There's also grants for older adults for home modifications, for example. There is the Kentucky Assistive Technology Loan, which is a loan, but it's also a lower interest loan for individuals with disabilities. So a loan from a traditional bank may not be the right loan for you. And if you're not sure, you can check with one of us and we can help you go through some options to find the right fit for you. You also have to understand things like credit score. Credit score is a big one, and there are free sites where you can check your credit score. If you're not sure how to do that, ask an independent living specialist or somebody at the center, and we can help. Make sure you can afford the loan before you take it out, because late payments and things like that can hurt your credit score, and they can also repossess certain items that you don't pay for, so it may not be worth it in the end. Also understand interest. Loans always come with interest, so if you borrow $800, you're not going to pay back $800. There's like $800 plus whatever the amount of interest is for taking out that loan. So it's going to be a little bit more than 800, or maybe a lot more depending on where you borrow the money from. So watch out for cash advance loans and places of that, and the Cash Express, or check into cash, or whatever. Stay away from those is my biggest advice, because those get you down little rabbit holes that people have a really hard time getting out of. If it sounds too easy, it probably is too good to be true. So, credit cards have interest too. Whoops, getting a little click happy. And they could be anywhere from 12 to 20%. Your home loans could be anywhere from 3 to 6. There's online calculators to help somebody, calculate the percentage of those things, so you can actually see the dollar amount. Percentages, I know a little bit about percentages, but I don't pretend to be a math major. So when you see 6%, it may not sound too bad until you actually see what that 6% is on top of what you're borrowing. Same thing with credit cards. Those interest charges can add up really, really quickly. So you can take advantage of some of those calculators. And if you'd like to see, like us to show some examples of those, leave a comment. Loan approval. You have to be approved for a loan. You can't just go get, I'm getting a loan. You may or may not get a loan. It depends on credit score, whether or not you have established any credit, what's out there, and the banks are gonna weigh the risk versus reward kind of thing. So they're gonna decide whether it's a good risk or a bad risk to give you that loan. Once you're approved for a loan, you're set up for a payment schedule, and it's very, very important to stay on that payment schedule if at all possible. It helps your credit. It helps you get other things in the future. And a lot of people don't think about this, but for bigger loans, such as your mortgage, you may have gotten your mortgage when you got it at like 6%, but interest rates may drop in the future. And if they do, then it might be time to try to refinance that loan or renegotiate the terms, as I say, either with another bank or the same bank to get a lower interest rate so that you're not paying so much. Grants versus loans. Now, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but I felt it was important, and it is. You obviously want to check to see if there's any grants out there that you can use. Grants can be given for school. They can be given for a car, a wheelchair, or other things. So you definitely want to do your research or ask one of the staff to help you. Grants are something that you don't have to pay back, and they may not come with the interest and the fees that loans do. So they're always the best choice in a lot of cases. Sometimes they're not an option, unfortunately, but you always want to do your research to see if there's a grant that is available for you. Watch this.
Good debt versus bad debt. Debt is always a bad thing, right? Not necessarily. Debt is when you owe something to someone else. This could be as little as owing your friend $10 or having a loan for a new house. All debt has its risks, but sometimes the results are worth it. So what is good debt? There are 3 characteristics of good debt. 1, it appreciates or increases in value. 2, the asset life or length of the time you have the asset is longer than the loan. And 3, there is positive financial leverage. This means the benefit of the asset is more than the cost of the debt. For example, if you buy a house, the value goes up over time. If well maintained, it should last longer than the life of the loan. And depending on the real estate market, you should be able to sell the house for more than you paid for it. Bad debt is a little easier to recognize because we've all heard the warnings about it. There are also 3 characteristics of bad debt. 1, it depreciates or decreases in value. 2, the asset life is shorter than the loan. And 3, there is negative financial leverage or the benefit of the asset is worth less than the cost of the debt. An example of this is using financing to pay for furniture. There are usually higher interest rates. You can't typically sell furniture for more than you paid for it, and sometimes it doesn't even last the length of the loan. Now that you know the difference, it is easier to recognize what is good or bad debt and make an informed decision.
Okay. We're going to go into budget. It's going to be our last thing for today. And then next time, if this is something that you all like, I'll go into managing money. So what is budgeting? Budgeting is creating a plan for spending your money and balancing your expenses versus your income. It's also used to save for a future goal or want. A good budget helps you spend less and save more. It will also help you think before you go into debt. And you can ask somebody you trust to help you build a budget, like your local Center for Accessible Living staff person. I've helped to build budgets before. Or a parent, friend, whatever, somebody that is good at money management.
Why should I budget? Ask yourself a few questions. Do I live paycheck to paycheck? Do I want to change my financial situation? Do I find myself running out of money right before I get paid? Am I ever late on payments? If you can answer yes to any of those questions, then you need a budget. Budgets can help us plan for both our wants and needs. Typically, budgets are thought of as restrictive, but they don't have to be. In fact, not only can budgets help you plan for your needs, but your wants as well. If life is keeping you in a financial bind, use your budget to figure out how to take more control. The budget will help you see where you can reduce your spending or maybe cut out something completely. You might also see that all your bills are due at the same time. So paying your cell phone bill early will help you save money at the end of the month. Sometimes people decide to budget because they find themselves in a financial hole. But why not try and prevent that financial turmoil and budget from the beginning?
Uh-oh. Didn't mean to close that whole thing out. Okay. So there's technology and apps that can also help you budget. And you plug in your information and they'll help you calculate the budget. They're good and there are pluses and minuses to this. So you can have something installed on your for a second. Let's go back. You can link your bank accounts to these. They do the math for you. And and they're really easy. Now the minuses to these is you have to be well versed in technology first of all. Some people are more versed than others. You also have to look at the risk of losing your password or somebody else gaining access to this. So how safe are they? Now I'm not saying don't use them. I use one. It's called Mint, MINT, and I decided to use it after a financial class. And it does track things for me, and it tells me when I'm over budget on areas and things of that nature. It also tells me when I've got something come in, so I don't have to necessarily look at several accounts. It tells me when my bills are due and different things of that. It's real easy. But it may not be the right fit for you. Some people just use like a spreadsheet on the computer, and I've seen budgets as simple as envelopes where you get your check for the month, you withdraw everything, you separate your monthly expenses in the envelopes. So many are for utilities. You put your money in for utilities and you take it out to pay it. And once it's out of that envelope and it's gone, you don't spend anything else. Now, the beauty of that is you have no more money to spend. You don't necessarily have a credit card or a debit card that's like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and get this. No, once your entertainment budget is spent out of that envelope, it's gone, and it's a real easy way for people to keep themselves accountable. For some people, that's not necessarily what they want to do. So you just have to find what is right for you. Okay, here's some examples of some budgeting tools. Mint is on here. There's also Personal Capital, Budget Pulse, and Every Dollar. And if you want links to those, leave me a message in the comments and I will give you links to those. Budgeting worksheets. That's another way to keep a budget. You print out a worksheet and it has the line items in there for your monthly income and your rent, your gas, and your electric, your phone, your water, your food, and all of that. You just fill in the blanks. And another quick tip that I always tell people when I'm working with them on a budget is to fill it out in pen. It seems so simple, but pen is harder to change. And budgets you should be able to change your budget depending on your needs. But doing it in pen, it might take you a second to realize, oh, do I really need to increase my budget for eating out per se, or whatever. It takes you a little bit longer to change it rather than just erasing it like it was never there. But there are free ones online, and we're happy to help you get examples if you need them.
I keep a spreadsheet, a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet that I use essentially as my electronic checkbook. I actually just noticed this last weekend that I hit the 800 mark in terms of the number of transactions I have recorded in my spreadsheet. I've been keeping it for a couple of years now.
So there's an example of something that somebody does. Everybody's different. You have to find the right fit for you. And also, you have to understand that money needs to lead to goals. Okay. We all have goals. We talk about goals at the center all the time. You want to move out. Okay. Maybe you create a budget for a few months to save for those hidden costs that we talked about, like the appliances and the deposit And it may have to be broken down like that. You can't just go into a big goal and be like, I'm going to do this. Budgets connect your money to your goals. So ask yourself, what do you want your life to look like? And create those goals for yourself. And keep those goals in mind when you're creating your budget. Another thing that I've done with my younger folks, and they seem to like it, if they don't necessarily know how to answer that question, what do you want your life to look like? We do a vision board. So they put on that vision board things that inspire them, things that they've decided they want to work for. Also, it may be a motivational phrase or whatever that'll help them, achieve that goal. Something that they can look at to remind themselves of those goals, even if they know what they are. So you don't get bogged down in the day-to-day and forget what those goals are. People tend to really like vision boards. I'm also a really crafty person, so I love vision boards. So this slide is all about tying your budgeteers goals, which is something I've already explained. So if you want to move out, for example, use a budget to help you pay for those hidden costs that it's going to take you to get there. And that may take you even a year or two, depending on your situation. And that's okay. As long as you're working on achieving that goal, don't worry about how long it takes. You will be so proud of yourself when you get there. So I hope that part of this financial lesson was helpful. Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know some other things that you want to see. I will definitely come back with the managing money piece. And I'm hoping this helps you. We're looking for creative ways to reach out to our consumers and still provide those independent living skills, regardless of whether or not we can meet with you. So we want to hear from you. So please let us know. We want to know what's helpful for you all. Thanks. And you all have a good day. Bye.